Hi, my name is Chantelle Todman Moore. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I attend Oxford Circle Mennonite Church. And I'm excited to be joining this conversation at the gathering on racism in the church. There are very few topics that are as relevant and important to the life of our country and to the life of our church as the issue of racism. And so I'm excited to see this conversation taking place on the gathering. First off, I just want to say that the idea that because we talk about race or racism, that is what makes it divisive. You can just go ahead and not worry about that, because the reality is that we are a country that is very divided and very polarized about a lot of things, and one of them is race, and it has been a long history in our country, and so it's okay to go ahead and have that conversation because it's needed. And sadly, in the church, we have a really long history of maybe not inventing the idea of race or racism, but definitely playing our part in perpetuating racism and using race and racism as a barrier for people accessing the church and us experiencing unity as the body of Christ. And so it's a very important topic for us to be discussing and wrestling with. And so when we talk about racism in the church, where do we even begin? Because there's so much that has been said, and there's so much more that needs to be said about racism and how it impacts the life of the church. And one thing I just want to say off the bat is that we really need to begin to think about owning our shared history. I think sometimes we just want to let bygones be bygones and move on and just act like things didn't happen. But as you might be aware from your own interpersonal relationships, you can't ignore past hurts or even ongoing hurts that are happening. And so there's those within the body of Christ who are very much not as aware about what's happening racially in our country or even within the church. And then there's those who race and racism are part of their everyday reality. They are hurting. They're impacted very deeply by what's happening racially in our country and in our church. And so, and we're all in this body of Christ together. And so ignoring this reality will not make it go away. And if you're in this world and you're in the church, then you are being exposed to and are experiencing the racial realities of our country. And so the best thing that we can do as a church is go ahead and just own that it's a reality and that it's part of our shared history as a country and as a church. And when we begin to own that, then we begin to have honest conversations, and there is more of a chance for reconciliation and healing to occur within the body of Christ and beyond. And so as we own that shared history, people's anxiety goes up and people start to feel uncomfortable and guilt. People begin to feel despair and hurt. And I think that owning that shared history, you can't just stop there. You have to be moving in relationship towards each other, moving towards those that we consider to be the other, the people that are outside of our comfort zones, outside of our racial or ethnic backgrounds, our communities, and begin to move towards having relationships that are authentic, relationships that are full of respect, and relationships that are full of humility. And I think Jesus really modeled that for us. He comes down, it says in John 1, to earth, and he takes on flesh. He takes on our realities as humans, and he moves into our neighborhood. And Jesus modeled this relationship that was transformational for him and for everybody that was in relationship with him. And so when we own our shared history, we need to do that in the context of relationship with each other, a relationship that creates room for transformation. And when we're in those relationships and we're owning our shared history, we're hearing each other's stories, we're being in each other's homes with those that we consider the other. One thing that we need to just kind of take into account is that moving towards each other in relationship and owning our shared history as a body of Christ is going to require us to really be in it for the long haul, and to count the costs and to have an attitude that is tenacious. I think too often we want quick fixes. Some people like to blame the millennials for being more impatient than other generations. I just think we're all impatient, really, and we should be, because change needs to happen more than ever. But also knowing that this is going to be a long process, and that it's going to be a hard process, and that we really need to be committed to it every day, and need to be counting the costs for what it means for us to be in relationship with each other and to really own our history as a church. And not to give up just because things are hard, but to really commit ourselves to doing the work of racial healing or racial reconciliation. And so it's a beautiful process. I know at our congregation that we just started, we're a very diverse congregation, but we just started having a more formal conversation within this last year through a Christian education class. And one thing that we really did was listen to each other's stories and also just kind of own our realities of where we're at. And it has created space for us to have a more open dialogue and to begin to experience some healing and also some visioning for what new realities that we could be experiencing. And so don't just end at owning the past and the current realities, and don't just end at being each other's friends and knowing that there's going to be some hard parts, but really beginning to envision together a new reality, an alternative reality that requires prophetic imagination about how we really can live into a new world where we experience healing as a body of Christ around racism and race. And we come at that with humility and lots of love. So I hope this message has been encouraging for you, and that, you're ready to go on this very hard but very rewarding challenge of beginning to address racism as a church and beginning to dismantle those barriers that wants us to be apart instead of being unified as a body of Christ. Blessings to you.